All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, October 21st, 2019, to order. We don't have a pastor here today, so we will just start with the pledge. Mr. Marler, would you like to lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, first up is the agenda approval. Matters not specifically listed on the agenda may be added or acted upon with the supermajority vote of the council members present and eligible to vote on the matter. Council members, any issues with the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I will entertain.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
We got a motion, we have a second. And let me press my little button for y'all. Vote is unanimous, so moved. All right, first up, did you hand me that proclamation, or you have it? We have a proclamation for the City of Destin 35th anniversary celebration. That I'll come forward and read. Testing. Hello. There we go. City of Destin proclamation, the City of Destin's 35th anniversary celebration. Whereas Destin was incorporated and became a city in November of 1984, and whereas the City of Destin proudly celebrates its 35th anniversary this year, and whereas while the city has seen remarkable change, monumental growth, and has been nationally recognized for its achievement during the past 35 years, it seeks to carefully preserve its heritage and environment. And whereas the success of the City of Destin is due to the efforts of those elected and appointed officials who have volunteered their time, talent, energy. And whereas the success of this organization is due also to the commitment made by the city staff to carry out the vision of these leaders. And whereas the City of Destin will host an open house to honor our residents, our leaders, our volunteers and partners, our businesses, our youth, our seniors, and our beaches and harbor. And whereas Destin commemorates the tireless effort of all those involved with making the City of Destin a world-class community, and now therefore, be it proclaimed by myself and the council that November 19th be recognized as the City of Destin's official 35th anniversary celebration.
Team effort among city staff and our elected officials and of course of our strategic partners. I think we've got about 13 that are on tap to host booths, so it's a wonderful opportunity for us, the public that we serve, for them to come visit with us, get to know everything that we do, not only publicly but also behind the scenes and meeting our strategic partners. So again, the event starts at 11:30, runs until about 1 o'clock at the Destin Community Center. We are waiving the fees that day for the event. We're also going to have a shred truck on site. So if you've got any documents and things that need to be shredded, bring them on Thursday.
That's right. Bring them. Thank you.
I'll be there.
All right, next up, item 1A, approval of the minutes of August 5th, 2019.
So motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
We got a second. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, we have a special presentation tonight. The 2020 Census in Destin. Ms. Nisha Barron from the Census Bureau will come up and give us some information.
Talk. Ooh, yeah. Good evening. My name is Nisha Barron. I'm your 2020 Partnership Specialist. I'm a resident of Okaloosa County. I'm a retired Air Force veteran, and I've signed up to do what I feel is a very important job for our community. As you know, the census is coming. The census is coming. Mandated by the Constitution, 1790, it said we will count the United States population every year ending in 0. It said we will count the residents who resides. Now, if you're on American soil, April 1st, 2020, Census Day, we're going to count you. Why? Constitution says so. But it's for power, law, and to take care of our people. We're going to take care of all people that's here. Everybody drives the roads. Everybody, our hospital said, the Hippocratic Oath said they will be treated. So we're going to count everyone. Everyone counts, everyone will be counted. That's the logo. Oh, I can click. Hold up, wait a minute. Well, I don't really need it. Am I doing it? Oh, I'm doing it. There we go. Yes, this is our 22nd, about to be our 23rd decennial. And we talked about the law, the power, and our congressional lines are determined by the population. Our school districts are determined by the population. The number of seats in Congress are determined by the population count. The population count is how all federal funded programs are determined. We cannot wait till we have, God forbid, another disaster for FEMA to come here and do their math formula and say, no, we don't have 12,000 people, we got 15,000 people. These numbers are important and we have to live them for the next 10 years. The population count for federal programs and federally subsidized programs take care of things like Medicaid, our schools, transportation, hospitals, and any other thing like grants. Should your county not have the money and we need to get a federal grant, everybody uses the census data. Census data is everywhere. Last time on census, we got 2 seats in the Congress because of our population count. Florida is the 3rd largest populated state in the United States ahead of New York. We passed New York in 2014, and we continue to gain people every year. They estimate another 6 million people will be in in Florida by 20. Jesus, no. The traffic. Yeah, they're calling it the next greatest exodus, but they anticipate another 6 million people will be in Destin by the year 2030. But to that end, our population count will determine how much of the $675 billion in federal funding we can get. And we want to get our money. We're growing, we want the money. So we need to be counted. The money follows the numbers, not the needs. Like I said, if FEMA has to come or something else occurs and we don't have the numbers, we can't get the money. Census data is everywhere we look. People like to think about census like how many people, how many ages. And this is a little snapshot of Destin, the estimated population based on the American Community Survey, which is a different survey than the census, and the average median. We could use this just for GP to see what we want, but census data also is used, as you know, by businesses. Businesses decide whether we're going to have, should we have a Dave & Buster's in Destin? How many people? How many people have, how many men? How many people, what's their income? Can they afford my ticket? They might use this data to dissolve problems. Poverty problems. Health insurance company, should I go to Destin? How many people I have? Census data is everywhere. We have the maps. The top left is our hard to count area. That just means geographic. And that's one of your special problems because of the condominiums. It's a very special problem on how to count. That makes it hard to count. Then we have our low response group. Actually, Destin did pretty well. They had 18% is the people predicted to not respond by mail. It's one of the lowest ones in the entire county. Destin did quite well. The average is 30% will not respond. So roughly 70 to 73 across the whole county, but you guys did the 80, I think 81 or something like that. How we're going to do it? This is really important and why we have to get the message out sooner than later. This year, we're not going to be knocking on doors to door. We're going to ask the American public, through an invitation on a postcard, to dial the 1-800 number and answer the 10 questions, or to get online and answer the 10 questions. We're saving money this way. We save money already by not going door to door to physically count the addresses this time. We use the post office system database. It's at how many addresses, what addresses are you actively delivering mail to? We married it with the IRS, and then we use GPS. This year, we only had to verify 30% of the addresses, as opposed to 100% we used to do on ground. And we're anticipating that we will have it. This is going to be a little bit of a curve because it's new to everybody. We used to concentrate on low response group, minorities, immigrants, economically challenged, but this is going to be new for everyone, particularly our seniors. How are we going to get it done? The American Library Association has tasked the libraries to get on board. They have grants to robust the systems so they can help people respond to the census. And then we have our partners, such as yourself. Last year, we missed nearly 2 million children under 5. 2 million children under 5 did not count it. That's pretty much like $44 billion lost. The census believes it's because, unfortunately, parents split up and they're not sure which house to count them on, or we got a lot of grandmoms that are suddenly parents. And then we need to count the children. So people are not clear about the residency, and that's another point of education we want to make sure happens, that we take care of it. People are also concerned about the confidentiality of the data. I have to go through my 4 layers to get into my laptop. It is encrypted and sealed for 72 years in a day. It's 72 years in a day because the average lifespan in 1790 was 72 years. So we figured Bob and Mary at 1313 Mecklenburg Lane passed away. You're not going to know 72 years in a day later. Of course, we live a lot longer now, but it's 72 years in a day and no one can get the data. It's strictly data, no names or anything. If you go to Ancestry.com and try to access your census data, you won't see anything past 1940. 1950 gets released in 2022. Just encrypted. It is covered by Title 13 that we will not share the data. The only president that tried to get it was Eisenhower. He wanted to know what his neighbors was. The one time we did share it was after the internment of the Japanese to find out the statistics and numbers. And it was after that we created the Title 13, so that data is protected and not shared. It is by law that we cannot share the data with any other agency, the FBI, CIA, or ICE. We cannot use the data against you. It is sealed and it is encrypted, and it belongs to the Census Bureau. On that note, when the census people come around, they should have an ID card, they should have the bag, and nobody should be afraid to ask them for it. We've had a certain incident here locally where I found some bags at a thrift shop. I immediately called my boss. Homeland Security showed up, and Miss Betty, bless her heart, she was a census taker, and she thought it would be a nice little memorabilia. But we weren't worried about Miss Betty. We were worried about the bad people that might took them and tried to be a census person. So we want to be on the lookout. If you see something that's not copacetic, please call the police. It's not a problem. We anticipate that it's America. We might try it, but we're poised and ready. We want the census to be safe and simple and secure. It's important that we get it done. No census taker should ask for money, PIN numbers, credit cards, or anything of the like. If they do, report them immediately. Oh, wrong button. How can you help? Get organized now. I am surprised. I just came from Jacksonville, Florida for a big summit down there, and I'm surprised that Florida is one of the 7 states that did not fund for the census. And there's a lot of our residents that do not know that it's going to be online. We're having difficulty getting people to work. Nobody wants to go door to door. We're getting ready to start one of our second phase of this operation is to count multiple homes, group homes, senior citizen living facilities, shelters, stuff like that, the barracks. So we're trying to hire people from that. That's going to start in December. So we need to get our public know that it's not going to be door to door. Hopefully we only need 30%, but we're already poised to hire 500,000 people to go knock on doors should this online venture is not as successful as we anticipate. So we ask you to prepare for the census now. We have complete count committees. I'm making one with St. Andrew's Church. Churches, we want the trusted voices. I can shout to the end of my voice, and I am, and I will, because it's important. I've been everywhere, 6 counties, but they know you better than they know me. They trust you better than they trust me. The pastor, a business owner, I've been to your Chamber of Commerce, because it's important to them too. Data is everywhere. And so we just ask you as a partner, it might be as simple as putting it on your Facebook page, putting it on the bottom of the bills of your water company, the cable company. If I just spoke with Okaloosa County, it was having a funding issue. We said we have to be creative, and that's what the Complete Count Committee would do. They would come together with a cross-section of the education, health, the sheriff department, a big cross-section of the people so we can get the word out. and we hope that you will become a complete count committee. Or appoint somebody. The Complete Count Committee will host, raise awareness, and we can do things like host promotional events. Here, these last 3 weeks, we've been at every festival across Norfolk. We have census data in 12 languages and 52 dialects. We had an event up in Crestview, and I had some partners come up from Central Florida so they can speak Spanish. I have some partners come in that can speak Chinese, so we can get the message out, because everyone counts, everyone should be counted. When I talked about the low response areas and the hard to count, behind McGuire's is your hard to count area. It's got the lowest score in the entire area. And that's because of the transient people that lives back there. Hard to count is geographics. Can they get up and down the stairs? Can we find the people? How to identify the people? Right behind the McGuire's is the lowest spot. The largest non-response in Okaloosa County, largest is Eglin Air Force Base. Interesting enough, I'm a GI. Where we come from is everything from the day we come in, but they have to know that their wives and children use these roads. They go to these schools, and they need to be counted. And as part of your military duty, you can give to the community, and what better way to give to this community than to be counted? And your count will last for 10 years. We have to get this right. We want to live with these numbers for 10 years. We're not going to be able to change it when something occurs. So that's what I mean. There's community complete count committees. There's business complete count. It could be anything that we can do to reach out and touch the people that multiply out. And I talked about those challenges, educating the people, residency questions. And that's about where you live. The other thing is people have summer homes. And unique to Destin, summer homes, winter homes. Where you spend most of your time is where you should be counted. Or where you're at April 1st, 2020. College students. Niceville's biggest problem, college students. Group renting places. So the residency question is it, not the citizenship, the residency question. And we talked about hard count committees, and we talked about the internet and phone access. I spoke with Cox Communications. They do have grants available. There's a community in Fort Walton Beach that has very limited access, and there's another with a rural spot. They will bring out some MiFis, and we'll coordinate to see if we can get that done. Some churches are holding Census Day, and to that end, they'll come and bring some MiFis that people can come and respond to the census on that day. We're trying every kind of creative way to make the people feel engaged, that they're part of it, and when you become a complete count committee, we will come back and hold a workshop for that committee and help them come up with the creative ideas to get it done. We want it to be unique to your community. How will the Census Bureau? We will come to support you by appearing at every festival. Like I said, in these last 2 weekends, we've been doing the festival shuffle. We didn't provide any digital service, digital resource that we have available to you. Whether they're promotional materials, we've got them audience specific, whether it's rural, city, small town, big town, truckers, country. We're not leaving anybody out. We're not leaving anything to chance. Everybody should be counted. And we want them to feel inclusive. And we're going to participate in local events. As the 2020 census get closer, there'll be a national push for it, and we'll start our national campaign. Until then, we have work to do. Cities out there have already started with their taglines. That's a few of them, and then I got Destin, smack dab in the middle. What's your line, Destin? That's Catherine's job. And we're hiring. We're hiring at a rate of $14.50 plus 58 cents a mile for the census takers. After we do the 4 invitations and the people do not respond, we'll send 500,000 people out, and that's where we need them at. And that and the group home count that's about to occur. You can apply at 2020census.gov/jobs. Don't do it anywhere else where you get all that mail. But people are trying to help get the count. We need, and this week right now is our National Census Recruiting Week. Tomorrow is the National Census Recruiting Day. So we need to get the word out. It's a big push. Destin, the shape of your future starts here with you. I'll wait to hear from you. I hope that I'm looking at the next Complete Count Committee, and I hope to hear from Mr. Ray or Miss Kathy or Mayor Jarvis. Call me, see what I can do to make sure Destin is strongly on the map. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it very much. Does anyone have any questions for our guest?
Do we happen to have I guess this is early on in the process, but we have our library available. We also have some resources in that facility. I mean, where do we stand with offering up our library services to try to get the word? Because we do have a decent amount of folks who are local that are running through our library. Do we have anything yet?
Ms. Livingston is poised. She has material. We've talked about having dedicated stations in, like one station dedicated for the census till we get to census time, that people can come, the employers, potential employees can come and watch the videos about what census taking is. They're already trained. They're going to be trained on helping people fill out the form. They've also offered up their conference room. If anybody wants to bring a group, I think it was was a ladies' garden club or something. Oh, come back and talk to us. So I'll go back and talk to the ladies' garden club. So they offered up the conference room. They're going to have a dedicated station. Another library's going. They got a kiosk with everything in English and everything in Spanish. All the promotional materials, applications, and the Census 101 down and dirty. What is it? So all the libraries are poised, but Miss Livingston in particular has offered that up. She's your librarian.
Go ahead.
So are y'all not doing the door-to-door like historically you have? You're relying on other methods this year, or will you still be doing some door-to-door?
We're going to send the invitations out beginning of the March, middle March, the invitation to self-respond. If the address, because they're going to be addressed to the address, not a person. If they do not respond, we'll send another and another. We're going to send out 4 invitations. If the address does not respond after the 4th, we're going to come and knock. And for the people that doesn't want the government in their business, it behooves you to go ahead and answer. They don't know where behooves you to go ahead and answer and get it done. And it's a cost saving and a time saving. But we will be sending them out because we have to get it done.
Gotcha, thanks.
I have a question, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming. It was very informative. And I do have one stupid question. How is it that people aren't counted twice?
Well, I can't really directly answer that, and that's the reason why the name is on there, so that we don't duplicate it. We do have a quality control group that does go over the information. They go back, and if there's anything that is questionable, they send the quality team back out to verify it.
Thank you so much.
And that's probably because when you're doing it, honestly, answer is 10 questions, but you're answering the 10 questions for every person in the home. And so maybe mom don't know that the dad already did the son. That could happen. But we send the invitation, it's going to have a code on it. You dial the 1-800 number, enter the code, and answer the 10 questions. Or get online, enter the code, and answer the 10 questions. Thank you.
All right. That was very informative. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Item 3, public comments on the agenda items that are not public hearings and any other matter not on the agenda. I don't have any cards. Right, Ray? No cards? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and make any comments of anything that's on the agenda or not on the agenda that's important to you? Mr. Wood, come on up. You know the routine.
Jim Wood, 3790 Misty Way. I actually wanted to comment on the census real quick. In 2010, I was the complete count chairman here in Destin. We did the on-the-ground count. At that time, I was concerned about getting folks counted. Now, y'all deal with tax money all the time. You know that gas tax and sales tax goes to Tallahassee, comes back here based on permanent population. So if you have an undercount, you're going to pay for it for 10 years. So if you don't get it right, it's a long-term effect. So I implore you, I'm concerned about doing the online, because I think a lot of folks won't respond. Now, you can, at least when I did it, if they send out door-to-door after the 4 invitations, you can always go to your neighbor's door and say, does somebody live next door? They give you certain basic data, numbers of folks, stuff like that. So there's ways to get the count done. So hopefully we'll get folks involved and want to go to the library or wherever and fill the things out. But it's critically important we get it right. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jim, in 2010, did the council itself call for the committee and then make appointments to it, and that's how you were placed on the committee board, or do you recall that process?
I'm not sure how we did that. I volunteered to do, somebody asked me to volunteer and I did. And we had a committee, but it was very informal. I think the chamber had somebody, school system, and I use that as email contact and phone calls to help get the word out in the area. Once we had the on-the-ground count, that was less important at that point because now you're going to go to everybody's door. Of course, that causes its own problem that somebody knocks on your door after dark. Sometimes that causes a problem. Nobody wants to answer the door. So any way you do it can cause some problems, but supporting it has got to be done. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Can we put an agenda item for the next meeting for potentially putting together a committee? And if people have folks that they know that might be interested, we can kick around some names and get at least the formal.
I got one, Mr. Wood. Would you like to volunteer, sir?
So we've got one. That's a real good start. Yeah, so let's just put it on as an agenda item if we could for the next meeting, and then all of us put your feelers out over the next 2 weeks and see if we can get some folks on this board, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, and I think what we can do is lean on that committee and Catherine to come up with a campaign by the city to support what they're doing as an organization as well. So to get the word out, and make sure people have the opportunity, put somebody at the dog park. We'll get a bunch of them right there. Or at the boat ramp on a Saturday, right? All right. Thank you so much. Any other folks like to make any comments during the public comment period? Come on up, ma'am. You know the routine.
Carrie Harbarger, Spring Lane. I might be a little presumptuous, and I've been out of town for a little while, and I was actually going to try to corner Kimberly before the second reading. I wanted to bring the attention, and I'm sorry about the card, I was reading this and realized it was here. The second reading on the ordinance of the 1927. In the town center, I'm probably going to bring up some memory here. Because it could never be site-specific, we had the Tom Thumb growing up there. So your Main Street and the road behind it, Spring Lane, had a limited mixed use. Will that change? Forever. And I actually, if I'd have known this was on here, I should have read this before I came, because I actually have it in my office. Spring Lane shares a mixed use with a commercial, limited commercial, because of, now this came straight from Bernard Kelly, right from the Kellys. Because they had the Tom Thumb to begin with, which is now the AOC, and you couldn't be site-specific. So we enjoyed that mixed use back there. And I actually noticed the town center mixed use. And I wanted to actually, this is the second reading, I want to bring this to the attention. Are we losing that privilege?
My understanding is that that specific site's a grandfathered use. It's a non-conforming legal use, and if they ever stopped running it as a convenience store, it would probably meld back into what is the designation around it, which is residential.
Well, that was because in addition to that, mixed use was added, the Spring Lane was added to the mixed use with limited commercial ability.
Would you like to respond to that, Louis?
I'm not so sure which parcel she's referring to, so it's kind of difficult here to remember.
It's on the corner of
I wish
that
that
Kelly mentioned.
Carrie, also, that particular property is not allowed to do anything except what they have, because that's the reason Tom Thumb pulled out. They couldn't build a gas station.
Well, right, well, it's because you're putting fuel in a residential area. Yeah. Different ballgame.
Louis, that's Kelly at Main,
Okay,
right?
Main Street, the Kellys designed it that way, and because there couldn't be site-specific, Spring Lane had limited commercial. You could have things, not money exchange business, you could have your office there, you can use your office number, or you can have your office there, you can have church functions, you can have certain, so I noticed that this code is going to be changing to mesh into the town center mixed use.
But the parcel you're talking about is not a part of this ordinance. This, if you look at the map, have you seen the map?
No, because I've been at it,
Why
and
don't you
I'm sorry.
come talk to me?
That's
and
why I came
I'll
to
show you.
sit behind you, but I didn't want to miss an opportunity to bring that up before second reading, that I'd like to make sure that doesn't change.
It's not a part of this rezoning.
Okay, will it be, and I wanted to see if it's going to be a part of that, so, in the future. Okay, that was it. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. And we'll move on to item number 4A, the city manager report. Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last council meeting, Councilman Braden asked that we get some additional quotes from S.H. Hayes with regards to the concrete services. Before we approve the continuing services contract, that quote has been provided. I believe it's page 79 in your packet, which states the prices for the strengthened concrete. I don't know if Mr. Braden wants to comment on that. I think what staff is looking for is either a motion to approve the extension of this contract or a motion to approve the extension with this added to it?
I have read it in the comments, because I had mentioned putting wire in the sidewalks as well. But I made a few phone calls, and I agree with the current contractor that, you know, the fiber, 4,000 with the fiber will be sufficient. And the brick pavers, I added that. I called in. I didn't mention it at council, but I did call and talk to Lance about that. I wanted to add the brick pavers in like we did on Main Street, because those mats just get tore up and then leave the nails sticking up in the concrete. And hopefully that will be a more permanent fix. Yeah, it looks nice. So I would hope that we can add these changes to the contract that's on 79.
So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but I think they can approve this extension as amended with this as the amendment.
That's correct. So, Lance, would you want me to entertain a motion? Let's just go ahead and wrap this up right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll fishing for a motion here to accept these amendments to the original contract and then to re-up to.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, to
Okay.
accept the contract with the amended portion on page 79.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion, I got a second. Any further comments on this particular contract? Seeing none, let's vote. Votes unanimous, so moved. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4B is a request for approval of the contract extension for road striping services with Emerald Coast Striping. At the last council meeting, there was a motion made for staff to bring back some additional information regarding rental equipment, rental striping equipment, and/or the purchase of equipment and the use of internal staff to operate this equipment. We've done that and provided that in the packet. I will say, just from my point of view, at this point during the fiscal year, in our first month of the fiscal year, my recommendation would be that we extend this contract an additional year and outsource it, as we're not prepared to do that type of work in-house. I just think we would get more bang for our buck if we continue to outsource this particular type of work. And Michael's here too, if you have any questions for him.
Council members, any questions on that? Go ahead, Mr. Braden.
It says that we budgeted for the $60,000 for the 20 budget. How much striping is that going to get us done?
I've recently updated a spreadsheet that lists all the striped streets in Destin. They're categorized as either 3, which is in dire need of striping, 2, which is the striping is sufficient for now, and 1s, which means it was striped recently. The lines are still bright and clear. Based on estimates at $5 a linear foot for a centerline foot, if we striped all the 2s and the 3s today, it would be right around $1 million, and that's including double yellows, edge lines, stop bars, crosswalks, and such. But $60,000, part of that was in the project for the reconstruction of Beach Drive, half of which was supposed to occur this year. And next fiscal year, the other half would be completed. We're still awaiting some guidance on Beach Drive, what we want to do with that. And so you could take out the striping out of Beach Drive, that project, and then subtract that from the 60,000, and whatever remains, you could divide that by 5, and that'll give us the linear feet that we can do roughly. Now, that does not include reflective pavement markers or delineators or other things that you would do when you would reconstruct or restripe a road or resurface a road. That's just a rough estimate on our part, $5 a foot.
Now, that rough estimate of $5, you said that was center line. Is that a center line with yellow stripe on either side?
Yeah, there'll be a double yellow down the middle and white edge lines. One thing I did want to mention is the MUTCD, which is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, doesn't require striping for local streets. That would be like for neighborhoods, with a few exceptions like roads with significant curves or roads that are poorly lighted. And so we may want to take that into consideration as well. So we have been traditionally striping streets that may not warrant it.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
So, Michael, that's a little over 2 miles at that price in this budget year, right? Somewhere. 2.5.
Assuming your math is correct, sir, yes.
Yeah. It's 12,000 linear feet.
Okay.
Whatever that adds up to. I don't have my chart in front of me.
Yeah.
All right. Ms. Ramswell.
So just a question, based on that estimate, are we looking at the regular road paint, or are we looking at the thermoplastic paint?
Yeah, this price is for thermoplastic,
Good, okay, thank you.
which has, thermoplastic has a service life of typically 7 or 8 years, road paint 2 to 3 years.
Is there any further questions on that issue? You are seeking, you have your recommendation. Would you like that in motion form? And we'll go ahead and vote on it and settle that
Yes, sir.
tonight as well. So I'll entertain a motion. The recommendation, I think, what page was that on? Like,
I request approval of the contract extension for road striping services with Emerald Coast Striping, doing business as Coastline Striping.
I got a motion.
Second.
Got a second. Is there any further discussion on this particular item? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4C is with regards to a request for approval of contract extension for security and fire safety with Advanced Protective Technologies, or APT. This was pulled from the agenda last meeting, and staff was tasked with bringing back some additional information, which I believe to be attached. At this point, I do want to inform council that we have currently underway at City Hall a security enhancement that is being provided by APT of approximately $10,000. They're putting our security in the front of the building to limit access to the backside of the building. The number of facilities that APT is servicing is all of the city facilities that are currently being monitored, so it's multiple facilities. I would recommend, there's only 1 year left on this contract, so my recommendation would be that we exercise the last renewal and then go out to bid in July to renew this for fiscal year 2021.
Any other questions? Yes. Go ahead, sir.
I have looked at this contract up and down, and I have a variety of questions. Specifically, to start off with, at Buck Destin Park, we don't have a security monitor, we don't have a fire monitor, we don't have a fire sprinkler inspection, we don't have a fire alarm inspection, and yet we're paying $240 to be inspected. What are they inspecting? We have nothing there according to this contract.
For sure, we have the fire extinguishers there, that they are providing that service for us.
Okay, that's the first one. We mentioned at the last meeting about the sheriff's office. Why are we paying for them to inspect the sheriff's office?
I mean, correct me, I'm sorry if I don't understand right. But
Well,
it's a
I'm just,
city-
on this, there's a plethora of different charges. And first of all, when it comes to an alarm system, and I've read this contract back and forth, you know, when you purchase an alarm system for your home, and any company comes in, they survey how many windows you have, how many contacts you're going to have. You pay an initial installation charge for the equipment. And after that, you pay basically a monitoring fee, okay? You could have 5 windows or you could have 50 windows. You're still paying the same amount of money for a monthly alarm. In your home, we pay $30, $40, whatever it is a month. We're paying $636, as an example, for them just to monitor City Hall Annex, and an additional $420 for them to monitor the fire alarm. Typically in a house, both of those charges are inclusive, okay? We're paying a lot of money for just an alarm system. It just doesn't make sense. I'm going to go ahead and vote on this, but I have a lot of questions here. It seems like we're spending a lot more money than we should. They're doing, I asked Ray to provide information. He hadn't had time to get it yet. They're doing annual inspections. I don't know what those inspections are. This contract gives us a lot of numbers, and we're paying a lot of money, but we still don't know what we're spending the money on, okay? Again, we're paying for money. We're paying for a fire extinguisher more than 1 year. We got billed for a fire extinguisher in 2014, and we paid for the same fire extinguisher in 2015. Okay, so there's just things that need to be reviewed in these contracts moving forward. I just think that I will certainly vote to support this because we certainly need security, but we got to do better with these prices. Thank you.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thanks, and I actually had one of the questions he had, which was the sheriff's office is on here and the Destin Museum is on here. Now, we may actually own the Destin Museum building, but I'm not sure. If we do, then...
We own both.
And the sheriff... Oh, I didn't realize we own the sheriff's office building. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, well, that answers my question.
There you go. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead. I'll entertain a motion, first and foremost.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and...
Thank you, sir.
I move to approve the contract's extension for security and fire safety with Advanced Protective Technologies.
I got a motion.
I'll second it.
I got a second. I think we've already kind of got ahead of ourselves, had our discussion. Seeing no more, let's go ahead and vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
So item 4D, announcements. I have a few announcements to make. Today, Ms. Kopp and myself and Mr. Braden participated in a conference call with the U.S. Treasury and the county representative with regards to Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park and Clement Taylor Park and the grants that we have pending at the Treasury. The question to be asked to the Treasury was, can we proceed with work prior to Treasury actually awarding the grant through the county to the city? And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Kopp, but to me the answer was yes, we can. If we incur costs before the award is issued officially by the Treasury, those costs would be on the city, and if we do work ahead of that award, the risk would be on the city to perform that work. But other than that, we are able to perform that work. And I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, and even more specifically, the question was whether we could start the procurement process now without putting the grant award in jeopardy, and the answer to that was yes. The U.S. Treasury has also offered to do for us what they do for other local governments, which is if we want to send them our proposed RFP language, they're willing to look at it and offer any input. The risk to the city, if any, is that if we get an unanticipated an unanticipated condition put on the grant award, once the RFP has already gone out, then that could affect the award potentially. But if we put some language in there to make everything contingent on the award, I think we can cover it if you all decide to go that route and authorize us to start the RFP preparation and process. Also, there's a two-part process from the U.S. Treasury, which is not just the award of the grant, but also they have a separate process for permission to construct. And I just wanted to let you all know that that can also be done simultaneously. In fact, they're sending a checklist to staff so that we can proceed with that at the same time as well. Otherwise, it would be we get the grant and then we still have to wait on the permissions.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. It was extremely frustrating, to say the least, after I got off that phone call, knowing that the question we keep asking is, could we put it out for bid? Myself going into it, basically blindfolded, had no idea, what was going to happen or how the conversation was going to go. But after 15 minutes of listening to the conversation, I knew myself that this could go out for bid, and there was nothing stopping us. except for the couple changes that might come up later that we can put in the contract and the contractor can bid on it, knowing that there may be a couple changes. And it was just frustrating to realize that this council has been asking repeatedly about this park for months, and we gained more information in that 15-minute phone call from Ms. Cobb asking questions than we have from staff in 6 months. So I would really like, anything from this day going forward, anything that has anything to do with that park, funds, whatever, she is copied on everything. You stayed in that loop, because it's just frustrating. I don't know if we just don't have the personnel. I know we don't have anybody, as far as I know, that does grants. And it was frustrating that the money has got to go to the county, and then it's got to come to us. I won't go into that. I'll make somebody mad. But anyway, I would really like to see Ms. Cobb copied on everything, if Lance, if that's okay, has anything to do with that project whatsoever, to keep it moving forward. Thanks.
Karen.
Well, in defense of the staff, we task the staff with this job or that job, so the staff has to drop one job to go to another job, because Mr. Braden's probably right. We are technically understaffed in a lot of different ways. So, I mean, the council needs to me, the council needs to decide what prioritizing for staff is in certain things. But I do agree with Mr. Braden as far as, we've been on this park issue for several years, and I'd like to see it done before I get off this council.
Before I go to Mr. Destin, I have a question for you, Rodney. Your take on the meeting as it went on, the risk to us by going to our, out for bid, can we mitigate them? Should we just go ahead and take a step of faith and go ahead and go out for bid and get to show a little initiative on our side? I mean, would you?
That was the take, and I spoke to Ms. Cobb afterwards to make sure that I heard everything right. But we can, at any time we can put that out for bid, as long as it's in that contract, knowing that the treasurer could add something, or take something away, and they may require something else, something maybe to do with ADA compliance that has to be added to that project. As long as the contractors know when they're bidding this that, we have a couple things that may change coming up, and you'll have the opportunity to change your bid on it if we have to add something or take something away. But yeah, by all means,
And if we got in a pickle because of that, is that something we can absorb some of that cost and then wrangle about getting more money from the grant after the fact? Or is it just in the interest of timeliness and progress and all that, we just take the chance?
Well, that's why one of the suggestions that I was going to make, or that I indicated before, was that we would take our suggested RFP contingency language and let the Treasury take a look at it, because they've been doing this with many local governments, and they indicated that many local governments want to simultaneously go out to RFP or begin their procurement process at the same time as they're reviewing the award. But they did also say that every award is unique, and so things could come up that we're not anticipating. And so that risk is on us, but if we put language in the RFP that's notifying potential contractors that there could be changes, then we're mitigating the risk. But yeah, the cost is on us if something comes up unanticipated.
What do you reckon a timeline to get that RFP language prepared and sent to them for y'all? How long do you think that we could get that done?
I mean, I can send that to them this week. I don't know what their review time is. I did ask them the timeline that they anticipated for the park in general at this point, and they said it could be anywhere between 60 and 120 days. Actually, the ball is currently in our court right now, because they are waiting on the question of whether the park is ADA compliant. And that's something that our engineer needs to respond to the county on. I believe that's the last question. Once that is responded to and the county gives the information back to the U.S. Treasury, they indicated they could provide a much more definite and less contingent timeline.
Thank you. That
And
answers all.
there was also the submerged land.
There was, but I think Lance said we already responded on that.
Okay, thanks, man. I appreciate both your efforts on this. Mr. Destin?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we instruct Ms. Kopp to work with staff to draft the RFP contingency language and transmit it to the Treasury, and to simultaneously pursue answering of the checklist that I believe the Treasury is communicating with the county, and that needs to be filled out simultaneously. And once all of that is done, as quickly as possible, bring back the RFP to us so that we can vote on it and get it on the street.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none? Unanimous, so moved.
The short-term rental task force will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, October the 22nd at 4 p.m. in City Hall, and will begin their journey hopefully to give us some additional information to improve our processes for the next fiscal year. The pre-visioning session with Mr. Buzz Eddy will take place on Wednesday, October the 23rd in the City Hall Council Room, the small room off of the boardroom. And I think you all have your specific times. If not, I can get them for you again. The open house will be held on Thursday, October 24th at the Community Center from 11 to 1, and our annual Pinfish Kids Fishing Tournament will be held on the docks behind AJ's on Saturday, November 2nd. Our visioning session will take place on Thursday, November 7th at the Destin Community Center, and that's all I have, sir.
Thank you so much. All right. We need to take a break before we get into all that reading that you have to do. Are you guys ready for it? You guys ready to press on?
Good.
All right, let's press on then. We're going to start item number 5. This is the public hearing portion of our meeting, and we'll just start A, B, C, right on down the list, and this is the Kyle Bowman Show. Go ahead, sir.
Gary. First, we have 5A. We are considering DO 20-01, Destiny Planned Unit Development, minor deviation to a major development order. Lewis, if you could stand, so I'll swear you in real quick. I don't see any other members of the public who will be here to testify. So, Mr. Zanguzzi, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth?
I do.
All right. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Kopp.
This item was brought to council a couple meetings back where we basically asked for direction on whether we should request the amendment to the major development order, and you all did suggest that we go that route. So basically, we are looking to delete the 25-foot setback requirement from the lake within the PUD, and that would require a DO amendment, which is why we're going through this process. Do you have anything to add, Lewis?
As we previously mentioned, I think this will help a lot of the property owners that currently are in a non-conforming situation as a result of this situation. And so going forward, everyone else will be on the same platform and help a lot of folks with their transactions that they may need to have down the road.
And at this point, I will open this portion up for a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address item 5A, the amendments to Destiny Plan Unit Development PUD orders? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close that public hearing portion of the meeting, and we'll take it back to our council here, and I will ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll have some discussion.
Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we approve the requested minor deviation to the Destiny Planned Unit Development orders.
I got a motion, and I got a second. I see that Ms. Ramswell is up first for the discussion portion of the meeting. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, it's more of just comments because I love this. Due to an inadvertent oversight, and I know it's not current staff, but I believe, isn't this the same neighborhood that suddenly we had to move Highway 98 to go around the neighborhood?
We didn't, Geraldine did.
I believe, yes, so there's multiple issues that have
Yes.
emerged from this PUD. Okay, at any point, when does it stop being amendments to a PUD? I mean, the subdivision's been there for a while. When do we have to do anything with it, or is it I can't even talk, perpetuity?
It is permanent if there's a condition in the PUD. If it's addressed and we want to change it, we would have to amend the PUD permanently. If it's not addressed in the PUD, then we wouldn't need to amend.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other further comment? We got a motion, got a second? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
All right, we have 5B, which is ordinance number 1916 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, establishing a process for regulating and reviewing changes previously approved land uses in the City of Destin, providing for amendments to Article 2, Administration of the Land Development Code, defining change of use, providing for amendments to Article 3, Definitions of the Land Development Code, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
All right, at this point in the meeting, I will open this up to public comment for the public hearing portion of it. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the second reading of ordinance 1919 LC? Seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. I will entertain a motion at this point. We need a motion.
I can make a motion, at least I can cobble one together. I make a motion to adopt on second reading ordinance 1916 LC, establishing a change of use process which regulates changes of previously approved land uses.
Second.
I got a second. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none? Unanimous, so moved. Sir.
We have 5C, Ordinance 1919 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to the process for development application review, providing for amendments to Article 2, Administration of the Land Development Code, providing for amendments to Article 7, Land Use, Type, Density, Intensity, Zoning, and Regulatory Controls of the Land Development Code, modifying the Technical Review Committee process, amending notice requirements for development applications, amending the conditional use process, amending the thresholds for major development order review, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. At this point, I will go ahead and open up the public hearing portion of the second reading of ordinance 19-19 LC. Is anyone in the audience like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
I move to ordinance 19-19 LC on second and final reading.
Motion second. Is there any further discussion on this? Share the pain on the motion side, folks. All right. See none? That way poor Parker doesn't have to do every one of them.
Yeah, but he was doing such a good job.
He's very good at it. He has a radio voice. Ayes have it, so moved. Mr. Bowman, you got
Five.
water? Do you have plenty of water?
I'm running a little low.
Okay.
We might have to take a break. No, we're good.
All right, go ahead.
We've got 5D, ordinance number 1923 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps, to include a change in the zoning designations of the parcels described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A from medium-density residential village, MDRV, to residential office and institutional village residential, ROIVR, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is a second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. At this point, I'll open this up to the public. Anyone wants to make a comment on the second reading of ordinance 19-23-LC? Seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 19-23-LC on second and final reading.
I have a motion, I have a second. Seeing no further comments, let's take a vote. Ayes have it, so moved. We've done our jobs. This should be easy, even though it takes a little while. Sir?
5E, ordinance number 1924 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2. Zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designations of the parcels described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A, from residential office and institutional general development, ROI-GD, to residential office and institutional village residential, ROI-VR, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is a second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. And at this portion of the meeting, I'll open this up to the public hearing portion of the second reading of ordinance 19-24-LC. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 19-24-LC on second and final reading.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Votes unanimous, so moved.
5F, ordinance number 1925 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the Commercial General CG zoning district, amending Article 7 of the Land Development Code, land use, type, density, intensity, zoning, and regulatory controls, amending Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses, establishing conditional uses in the Commercial General CG zoning district, providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, sir, and I'll open this up for public testimony on the second reading of ordinance 19-25-LC. Is anyone in the audience? Seeing there is none, I will close the public hearing portion of the meeting and entertain a motion.
I'll do it this time. Well, if you knew how much stuff we got to go through just to find it.
Kyron, read the motion.
My goodness. I moved to approve ordinance 1925 LC on second reading and final.
I got a motion.
Second.
I got a second. No further discussion, folks? Seeing none? Vote unanimous. So moved. Mr. Bowman.
We have 5G, ordinance number 1926 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designations of the parcel described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A from institutional INST and commercial general CG to institutional INST only, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is the second reading and a public hearing.
I'll open up the public hearing portion of the second reading of ordinance 19-26-LC at this time. Is there anyone in the audience that want to make a comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing, and I entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1926 LC on second and final reading.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? The vote is unanimous, so moved. Go ahead, Mr. Bowman.
5H, ordinance number 1927 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2 zoning maps, to include a change in the zoning designations of the parcels described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A from Commercial General CG to Town Center Mixed Use TCMU, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
Thank you, sir, and I'll open up the portion of the meeting to public hearing for second reading of ordinance 19-27-LC. If anyone in the public would like to make a comment on this item. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1927 LC on second and final reading.
Motion, got a second? Seeing no further comment? Votes unanimous. So moved. Well, I tell you, we're chuckling about this, but this was a long, arduous path, and it's really going to help our community development program. And it's just, we got a few more to go, and I think it's going to make life a heck of a lot easier, not only for our development department, but all the folks in our community that wish to build a house or build an apartment, do business in Destin. So it's going to be good for all of us. Seeing that, let's go, Mr. Bowman.
5I, ordinance number 1928 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Article 7 of the Land Development Code to eliminate the Residential Office and Institutional General Development Zoning District, ROIGD, and consolidate it with the Residential Office and Institutional Village Residential Zoning District. Providing for findings of fact, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
And I'll open up public comment for the second reading of ordinance 19-28-LC. Seeing no one from the audience, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1928 LC on second and final reading.
I got a motion. Got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Votes unanimous, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
5J, ordinance number 1929 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, Section 7.12.01A2, zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designation of the property described and generally depicted in the attached Exhibit A from multiple zoning districts to one zoning district, specifically from institutional INST, residential office and institutional general development ROIGD, and recreational REC, to institutional INST only, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
Hang in there, sir. At this moment, I'll open up the public comment period for the second reading of ordinance 19-29-LC. Seeing no comment from the public, I will close this portion of the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1929 LC on second and final reading.
Got a motion?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none? Votes unanimous. So
All right, last one. 5K, ordinance 1908 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to livery vessels, providing for findings of fact, providing for purpose, providing for definitions, providing for temporary moratorium on livery vessel permits, directing staff to develop recommendations for regulation of livery vessels, providing for severability, providing for expiration of moratorium, and providing for an effective date. This is the second reading and a public hearing.
at this moment, I will open up for public comment on the second reading of ordinance 19-30-CN, livery vessel permitting moratorium extension. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1930 CN on second and final reading.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion.
Second. Let me reread this. I actually read 08. I didn't read 30. This is actually ordinance number 1930 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to livery vessels, providing for findings of fact, providing for purpose, providing for definitions, providing for a 12-month extension of ordinance 1908 CN, temporary moratorium on livery vessel permits, directing staff to develop recommendations for regulation of livery vessels, providing for severability, providing for expiration of moratorium, and providing for an effective date. If you could just reopen it for public comment real quick.
I shall. Seeing none, I'm going to close it real quick. All right, we got a motion?
Got a second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's a spike vote. All right, item number 6, consent agenda.
Mayor, if I may, on behalf of our staff and the land use attorney, I really appreciate the effort and the support we received from the city council on this major effort. If you recall, we started way back in February, and we've been at it since. I'm happy to report to you that we are pretty much like 98% done with the alignment of the future land use map and the zoning map. There are 2 mop-up operations that will come before you next month to close out that effort, and we'll produce new maps within the next couple of months so you can see just how pretty things look. We're not quite there yet, but I think this is a major undertaking. We will be bringing to you 2 major efforts in the coming year. One will be the year and evaluation. It's an appraisal and evaluation process for the comp plan. We have promised and written to the state that we'll be doing that by the middle of February. If you recall, that will primarily update our comp plan to the requirements of the state with respect to coastal development in our community. So that's one effort that will bring to you dates and what needs to be done. The other one is the major undertaking to then align our land use development code to what we are just completing doing here. I expect that to take pretty much a good portion of next year. What I'll do is come before you and with the assistance of the land use attorney, give you a preview of how the code would look like going forward, and then bring you the various pieces to it. We intend to make it as legible as possible, make it easy to access, to navigate, and more importantly, understandable. And I know our code enforcement compliance folks are dying for that effort to start, and with your help once more, we're going to be coming back to you with similar efforts. Hopefully it won't be like 9 ordinances one time, but I can't guarantee that. These are things we got to do to make ourselves as whole as possible and project the kind of brand from a development standpoint, services that we'd like to project to the folks. So I thank you again for that effort, and I look forward to my continuously working with you.
Louis, I have a question on the upcoming work that we have to do preparing our evaluation of the comp plan itself. Is there, I know you'll add items to the agenda between now and the next 2 months or 3 months. Could you possibly give us a legislative schedule ahead of it of what to expect and how it's going to come down, so we can, in our own minds, have a little bit of a timeline of
Correct.
What we're going to do, if you could do that?
Yes. I have a meeting with my staff on Thursday and a coordinating meeting with Ms. Cobb on Friday. Hopefully, the next meeting, we can give you a sense of what it means on your side of the ledger to get things accomplished. I intend to doing that with this effort as well as the other one, so you have a sense of the time effort that will be required on your part.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Knowing that that LDC is going to take a tremendous amount of work and time, do you, and with the software that we're integrating into the system, do you anticipate having enough time and staff to get both of those done at the same time, or do they not even?
I do not anticipate any additional workloads beyond what I'm currently anticipating right now. So to answer your question more directly, I don't expect any problems. Should things change, I'll come before you and advise you accordingly.
Thanks. Please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just bring a white flag and wave it, kind of give us a heads up. Help.
I'll start with the yellow flag first.
There you go. All right. Well, let's move right on. Thank you for those comments, sir. And it's a work together. So we look forward to 2020 and trying to tidy up that LDC and get that done. We'll move on to number 6, the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second. Motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none? Vote unanimous, so moved. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to know if staff can tell me how many of the sprinkler wells on the 98 between Main Street and the Marler Bridge in the medians, how many wells are down right now, non-operable?
All of them.
All of them? So we're not getting any water at all on any of the medians?
No, we were instructed by FDOT for the Triple R project to remove and/or shut those down.
I thought that was the ones on east side of Destin.
I know we did have to remove some of those too towards Matthew. My understanding was that all of the ones towards the bridge were made inoperable. But I can double check it.
I know we have, there's at least 2 wells that are cut that are not working at all and hadn't been for all summer, and I was just wondering why are there just those 2 not working, or what's the holdup? Why are they not working and the rest of them are? Or why are they cut loose and?
I would have to double check on the location. I'm aware of some where DOT made us actually pull the well motor and pull the meter until they were done with their work, and then we could go back in and replace it.
Can you please find out, because I know there's 2, one in front of Goodwill, the Goodwill store, and the one in front of CVS is also cut loose, and that's the only 2 that I'm aware of as of 2 days ago when I checked them. Find out what's wrong with them, why they're cut, and why there are only 2 cut, because there's nothing being done to those medians whatsoever from DOT or, I mean, when I went down there and looked at them, looked like some of them are getting water and some of them aren't. If we can find out, I'd really appreciate it.
Can I piggyback off of your question? It was brought to my attention from Sandy Trammell that I guess the pump that feeds the landscaping that is up and down Mountain Drive is down. In any event, the drought has basically killed a bunch of the stuff that we spent a fortune on landscaping on Mountain Drive. So it was told to her, I suppose, and I'm repeating it may not be accurate, but that we have a pump that feeds the majority of the landscaping watering, and it's down. Is that accurate?
I'll have to check on that. But getting back to Councilor Braden's question, FDOT is going to redo the landscaping on 98 from the Marler Bridge to Airport Road. The last report I got is they've budgeted $1.2 million to redo the landscaping there.
Okay, thanks. And I think your question is they're pumping water there, but they've got problems with the valves.
Can you guys, just check on it and we'll talk about it at the next meeting. Hopefully, if it's just an issue of just getting stuff replaced, I'll make budget amendments. I don't want us to lose the landscape. I mean, we spent a lot of money redoing that whole strip.
The pump system at the roundabout at Mountain and Benning was struck by a car recently, I'll check on that as well.
Mr. Braden, go ahead.
Mayor, the only thing I got under my name is the Crystal Beach right-of-way encroachment. We had the same thing on Hutchinson. It pretty much got the same issue on every street in Crystal Beach, where the white picket fence was built right next to the sidewalk. And we had the same thing on Hutchinson. And I know we reached out to some of those homeowners and tried to make them move them, but they didn't do it. So basically, when we rebuilt that road and sidewalk, sent them a letter saying, you know, we're coming through there, we're going to tear it out, throw it in your yard, you can do what you want to with it, but we're not responsible for it. Now we have the same thing going on with the Crystal Beach, or with the Matthew. Yeah, it's Matthew Street. There's a lady that is trying to sell her home, but she's being held up because staff is wanting her to move her fence back, but we went out and looked at the property, and every fence out there is up next to the sidewalk. So I think it'd only be right to do the same thing with Matthew we did with Hutchinson, is send these homeowners a letter and let them know that their fence is encroaching. They can either move it now, or whenever we come through there, when the time is right, when we decide to put the sidewalk, widen the sidewalk, redo the road, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come through there and tear it all out, build our sidewalks, and they can put their fence back at their cost. Ms. Cobb might have something to add. She met me out there on site as well.
I guess if you have specific questions, I did fill in Joe Booty, who was supposed to fill in Michael. But the only thing I would suggest is if we're going to send out, because technically right now, they are not in compliance with code if their fence is in the right-of-way. Certain property owners were issued permits, and they placed their fence correctly on the permit plans. It shows it on the property line, but then in reality, they're about 4 feet into the right-of-way. You'd have to ask Public Works if any utilities are under there. I don't know. But if we do send letters and direct staff not to force them to come into compliance now, but wait until the sidewalk is widened, then we might want to record them, I guess, so that any future purchasers would be aware of the issue when they purchase the property, or at least put it in the city's open permit file so that when the title companies call, they'd become aware. So just something also to think about.
Did we ever have the same issue on Hutchinson before it was built? I mean, I know them homes were sold out there. Because I had a friend that had one on that street that they tried to make him move his fence back, fence and the pavers, and he never did until they come through there and widened the road and redid the sidewalk, and they tore his fence down, threw it in his yard, and then he built it back where he was supposed to. So I know there's something in place somewhere that these homeowners can.
Yeah, we took a few pictures this afternoon while it was raining of the Matthews situation. Just for a moment, if I can just press the pause button for a second. You'll notice that the home in the middle, that is the approximate location. That's a good fence. The remainder are right up snug to the back of the sidewalk. And that's what we're talking about, that 3 or 4 foot wide strip that they've encroached. Whether or not there are utilities within that area, we can certainly pursue that with Okaloosa Gas and the cable companies and all the utilities. Don't know, I can't speak intelligently about Hutchison Street today, but we can certainly go back and look if there were any letters issued or notices to comply for any kind of encroachments on the right-of-way for those.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking council for is we handle this street just like we did Hutchinson Street.
That's your suggested.
Instead of making these homeowners, you know, I mean, you got the one lady now, she's being held up because of it. She had a couple of permits. She's in the mix of getting those fixed, and then her fence. And then, I mean, there's a picture that goes, this is facing north. If you took a picture facing south, there's multiple more fences that are still there. So it's just not a couple of them. So I think it would be fair to these homeowners, because all of Crystal Beach is this way. Just handle them just like we did Hutchinson Street.
do you want to do that in a motion form? I mean, normally we don't. Or do you want to give staff direct? How do you want to handle it, Mr. Braden? Or how would you, how was, Lance, what would you like how do you want us to try to resolve this by setting a policy or doing?
Louis, do you want the opportunity to bring back a suggestion?
Well, I think in light of what the council member, they're saying, look for a global solution that will apply to everyone. I think there's certainly one that we could come up with. The question is where the utilities and so forth that we can take a quick look at. But if there's something we did last time, it certainly is worth looking at that and see whether that's also an option here before we go forward.
You want to give them some time
Yeah,
to
if
do
we
that?
can do that, just see how we handled Hutchinson Street, because I know we had the same issue, and let's just handle this one in the same manner, because this is not the last time this is going to come up, I know. So, yeah, if you can do that, Louis, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So you have
Mayor, that's
clear,
all I have.
you have clear direction then?
I have
Yes. Go ahead.
Can you go back, I guess, to that first picture, because you were talking about you didn't know if there were utilities or anything. See that little thing there to the left of the trash cans? That's a utility marker, isn't it? And we don't know whether it's going east, west, north, south, or what, but it's still on that side of the sidewalk, and if you follow that line, I don't know, I'm just saying that that might be an example of where there are utility lines. So, anyway. And then, building on what he was talking about there in Crystal Beach, I had somebody call me not too long ago concerned about the intersection of Matthew and Old 98, and that used to be public right-of-way, but now it looks like they've torn down what used to be right-of-way and are now building there. And I'm wondering if y'all have heard anything about this, or if maybe you could look into it. It seems like it was a dedicated right-of-way space when they built the Henderson, but now it looks like a neighboring property is perhaps building on it.
The Henderson building.
So if that's something somebody can check into, that'd be great.
Okay.
It may be, I don't know who's building there, actually.
I thought it was that piece of property we were trying to buy, beach frontage, and they were actually under construction rebuilding that piece of property. It's not Henderson, it's catty-cornered, headed east.
We'll check it out.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thanks, and I just have two things tonight, and they're pretty much the same thing. I noticed that the right-of-way along Commons, which is county and not us, if somebody could reach out to them and encourage them to mow and do some gardening, it's looking pretty bad. And then this one I think we're responsible for, but it's, if you were to eat at Pepito's off 98 towards Old Time Pottery Shopping Center, if you come out there on that little side street where Goodwill and everything is, there's a bush or a tree or something that has grown up again and made it very difficult for cars to see and make a right-hand turn without getting crashed into by westbound traffic. So if someone could take a look at that bush, tree, shrub thing and nip it back. And
Mr. Perry, will you please
all I have.
trim your trees back? Thank you, sir.
Was that your tree? I'm sorry. Whomever.
The Wiedenheimers have been after that tree for years.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following up on some things from last meeting. I had requested that we get a representative from FAA here. We could talk about drones. Any update on that?
We have reached out to the FAA, and we are actually talking with the representative and trying to figure out a day or a week that that individual can come down. So we have the dialogue going on right now, and we've received some valuable information, and we'll provide some additional details here shortly.
Great, thank you. Next question, the status of the Gulf Power light inventory.
We have not received a paper or digital inventory for Gulf Power at the moment. I'll have Tim Pete and Paul follow up with them in the morning.
You know, Tuffy Dixon sat here, and his thing was derelict vessels, and I guess the Gulf Power Light is mine. This is insane. It's been 6 weeks, and we continue to pay a bill, and we can't get them to give us an inventory. I don't know what it's going to take. Okay, you wouldn't do this at home. And the ridiculous thing about this is, how do they bill us if they don't have an inventory? How do they know what to charge us if they don't have an inventory? I don't know how to make it any clearer. It's something very simple. They definitely have an inventory, and we're asking for it, and we keep getting kicked back. It'll be Christmas, and we still won't have and yet we keep paying the bill.
Steve, I think we're going to have a meeting with Gulf Power that will be a public hearing, probably in the middle of November.
I know.
And we can jump them then
The problem is, this happened several years ago, and we should have learned from there, and yet we continue, and it's the same operation, which is ridiculous. The last meeting, we talked about Airport Road, and I know the mayor said that the mayor and the city manager had a meeting, and understand that. Do we have any update on that as far as when they think they're going to start?
I have not received an updated timeline yet.
I'd like to ask that we have an update in every council meeting about the Airport Road. This is another one of those things like the park. It's been going on for over 3 years, and we still haven't broken ground or anything. So just give us an update in every council meeting what the status is, please.
I can do that. I can tell you that when we were over there, they did say it would be after.
And I understand, and I appreciate, and I understand that, but here again, people are asking us, people on the Public Works Committee call me and ask me, hey, when is it? I don't know, okay? And again, I understand what you all did, and it was great news what you gave us. But again, if we don't keep kicking the can or something like that, if we don't keep, okay, enough of that. Any update or any idea on the access to your calendar, the city manager calendar that I talked about in the last meeting?
I don't think that's possible to do
Okay.
it that way, from what I've been told.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, and this is a work in progress, we had a meeting prior to this thing, and body cams for our code compliance people. That's a work in progress. We're going to talk about this a little bit in the vision session. I know Captain Nix gave me some information before we started that he's looking into it again. That could be a potential option that the sheriff's office, we get on their contract and we utilize their devices and not have to do it in-house. So it's a work in progress. It's something we're looking at for next season. Thank you.
Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Kopp, you might have to help me out on this. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I figured I'd go ahead and get it out there. Recently, due to some personal issues, I discovered that the previous owner of my residence did not properly permit the building that I have, and I'm working with the building department to have that taken care of. But in the process, I've kind of discovered that I'm not the only one in non-compliance, and we have an ordinance that I actually helped vote through a long time ago about out parcels on the properties. It's the part about it's non-conforming in that particular district, I think, is what I was talking about with you, Ms. Kopp.
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. Well, first of all, your code enforcement potential issue is not related to this because you are working on coming into compliance on your personal property, but with respect to the zoning district at large, which is the low-density residential, the code does not currently allow accessory dwelling units, so like a mother-in-law suite or something to that.
And I know that we have at least a dozen in that same area.
Right, so you all could either, A, direct staff to look at the issue and determine, how many problems there are in the district, if there are any, or you could direct staff right now to prepare an ordinance to change the code to allow them in the zoning district if you feel that you have enough information at this time.
Well, I'd like to ask another council member to do that since I'm kind of sort of in the middle of an issue. If I can get somebody to look at that and quickly think of that real fast, if you understand what I'm going through. Rodney, do you understand where I'm coming from?
I'll be glad to make the motion or direct staff to look in.
We don't really need a motion, I don't think. We just
Okay.
need some direction to staff.
I know, the only thing that I know of is there's several places off of Kelly, First Avenue, Second, on First Street, that have a mother-in-law's quarter, second home behind them. But I think when they were built, they could not have 220 run to them because they don't have stoves in them or things of that nature, so they couldn't be rented out or. But anyhow, that'd be great if you could look at that. Thank you.
So the direction is for staff to evaluate the zoning district and see if it's appropriate to allow them potentially at this point? That's what you want us to do, is that information gathering, or are you directing us to prepare an ordinance?
No, information gathering.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, because we might be opening a can of worms because it's not just over in that area. I mean, it's all throughout our entire town.
Well,
That kind of
then
stuff.
that's another question. Are we only looking at the low-density residential, or do you want a citywide review? Residential districts.
That's something I don't want to put on y'all because we got so much other stuff that's so much more important. I would just say,
I'd just say low density,
just go low density first. I hate
He
it.
could have handled it, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, we got to give some Joey to do it in the wintertime.
Yeah, thanks a lot, huh, Joey? Eston.
Thanks, Mayor. I got a couple items. So we went and had our meeting on a couple weeks ago with the FDEP over at Noriega Point. We had a little bit of a conference, which was I think a good resolution to what we believe is both of us, the city and the DEP, getting on the same sheet of music regarding the final look and access to the Noriega Point improvements. So we had some preliminary discussion that we were concerned that they were going to require us to install some docking for vessels, and it just, I think that perhaps got a little bit of rumor and conjecture to it. They have not asked for us to put any sort of infrastructure in. I think the compromise that has been cobbled together, at least tentatively, is that we will keep one of the four, what you could call the scalloped sort of embankment swimming areas that people have started using them as swimming holes, taking three of them and designating them as swimmer-only areas, and then leaving the fourth one at least open tentatively for access for vessels. But as so long as it is non-commercial and in nature, and probably reserving some right to at least try to, if it becomes a public safety hazard of too many boats cramming into a small space, we have issues with worries with public safety, with swimmers, boat propellers, all the things that we've worried about and have seen when you have high congestion with swimmers and individuals recreating and in some of these vessels, that we put it all into an ordinance and basically pass it so that DEP and the city are on the same page. So to that end, I'd ask that the council at least give the general consensus to the land use attorney and Kyle to draft a resolution for us to adopt that will establish that, those uses for those areas. And of course, I've got other points, but whoever wants to talk can hop in.
Mr. Braden.
Can we also look at the map that they put out, that they actually are claiming that is their land? There is a section that is in the harbor side, and I'm not sure if it's where that concrete wall is at. The map that they were showing that they had yellowed outlined, it didn't appear to be. But I mean, if they're claiming that piece of land inside the harbor is theirs, could that not be considered?
So some of all of the spoils probably is their land technically. What was left of the point is still the city's land. We did not specifically discuss the delineation of where the city land ends and the FDP spoils begins. If that is something council wants us to look into further, we could. I think it's probably irrelevant because we essentially have use of that. We're using it as our park. I don't foresee an issue there, but it could be something that we might want to address early before it becomes an issue down the road that is not foreseeable at this time.
If it comes down to where we have to lease that from them, because I know there's talk of that, then we've got to come up with something that, and I saw the map of the spoil site, and it did come into the harbor, just a small section.
I believe, and Lance, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as leasing from them, we would technically be leasing from them, but it'd be a de minimis amount for 99 years, something to that effect. That's the current plan.
Ms. Ramswell.
I have multiple concerns. Number one, it was never made public that one of the embayments was going to be used for boat docking or whatever. Neither was that brought up to us, nor is it in the contracts, anything that we see. So I have a real problem with that suddenly being changed. In addition to that, I'm trying to word this nicely. If we're looking at properties that get spoils from dredging and such, well, right around the corner, parcel B that's the primary I can't talk tonight. The primary purpose of parcel B and C was for spoils easement and support of the jetty system. So that's an option right there. But when we're talking about using one of those embayments for something it was never intended and was never presented to us, that's a concern. Here's another question. The north side or the northeast side, however we refer to the other side of Noriega Point, are we still allowing boats to pull up there like in the past? So that solves that, right? So we're allowing boats to pull up there. Well, if we were to allow boats to actually come in and do what's suggested over there in one of the embayments, you know, this grant's paying multiple millions of dollars to literally make that structure over there. Who's going to pay for the prop dredging that is going to occur?
You have brought up two things that I brought up during that, and also that staff and the attorneys brought up. The first being that, you know, where did this come from, the idea that some of these embankment areas would be utilized for vessels. I did go back and look at a memorandum of understanding that was executed by our mayor, Sam Severs, and that dates it probably pre-2010-ish, when the grant application was put in for this project, and it did include vessels within the memorandum of understanding, and I don't think it is the most appropriate use personally, but I do think that it's not coming out of thin air. I had to concede that point. To your other point with regards to prop dredging, we addressed it. We said, listen, you know, there will be some prop dredging that will occur in these embankments due to the fact that if you cram several vessels, they're not very big, and the DEP seemed unconcerned. That was not discussed that far. And I wouldn't bring this compromise to you if I didn't feel personally comfortable with the compromise, which I believe is keeping 3 of them exclusively closed and avoiding any sort of fights over sovereignty, over who gets. I think we can probably walk hand in hand with the DEP as our partners on the compromise that we've got right now.
But why do we have to compromise?
Well, the issue is, I think that they would like to have all of them unrestricted and open.
Yeah, for swimming or boating.
For swimming or boating. And at the end of the day, it was...
Compromise is a safety compromise, right?
Right, and that is where we're at. And I don't disagree with you. You know, they cram 100 boats on the north side of the point right now, and that begs the question, you go, isn't that enough access for vessels? Yeah. And you would argue, yes, but they feel that they would like all of it open for vessels. They are very pro-access. Yep. But
see, I would say vessels on the north side and swimmers on the south side, which is the way it was presented.
But that is not the posturing that the DEP is taking at the moment. So, again, to avoid protracted fighting, and ultimately, we still have another phase to complete. You know, like I said, I wouldn't be bringing a compromise to you that I didn't think was supportable. And like I said, if we keep one of them open with the understanding that if we do face prop dredging issues, if we do have manifest issues with public safety, that we reserve the right to close it, and then we move down the road. If DEP wants to get ugly, if we have an overrun of some of our issues that we've had with Crab Island vendors or any of the vendors from the hotels coming in and trying to utilize that area for commercial purposes, you know, we reserve the rights to try to limit that and close it. And I think that could all be done in a resolution form so that we don't have to make up a what-if scenario to go and fight with the DEP. If in the future that this is being abused, then we go down that road at that time. But for the
Yeah,
time being, it keeps us.
Personally, I can't support it, and I hope you understand.
Sure,
and
I do.
I just, this is contrary to everything I think we saw, the public saw, and I believe there are better options. I also see major safety concerns. We saw what people were calling the death hole a few years ago from prop dredging and sucking people out. Who's going to be monitoring this to make sure there are no swimmers in the boating one and no boats in the swimmer one? I mean, there's just all sorts of ancillary issues that emerge. So that's just my thought.
And I'll give you the opportunity to make it an official one if it would help, because I'll make a motion, and then if you'd like, you can put it on the record of your, rather than just doing it through consensus and you objecting, if that'd be all right with you.
Well, you can, you've
Yeah,
got everything I just said.
I'll go ahead.
That is my dissenting opinion.
I'll go ahead, and I'll make a motion to instruct staff to draft a resolution in line with the compromise of keeping 3 of the northern embankments closed for public swimming only exclusively, and leaving the bottom one open, but also reserving the right of the city to close it in the event of commercial activity, public safety hazards, that sort of thing.
Got a motion?
I'll second it.
Got a second. Any other further discussion on this issue? Seeing none? So moved.
So we have a city manager vacation terms. I'm bringing this up on the grounds that I believe our city manager over the last year and a half has truly stepped into the breach and taken a job that was not very popular and was very difficult. And jumping in and being the new captain of the ship is never easy, and it requires a lot of your time. But it also includes, I think in his contract, that unused vacation and leave time expires. So in that regard, I don't think it is fair, considering the challenges the city has faced since we transitioned from Carice, to punish Lance, who stepped into the breach and has kept the ship moving forward and in the right direction, to lose his leave time, because of course, if he doesn't lose his leave time, that means he has to take it, which I believe he has accrued several weeks. And to just have Lance gone for several weeks before the end of the year doesn't serve the city, and I don't think it serves the council very well. So in that regard, I wouldn't think it would be fair to punish him to lose that leave time, and I think it's best that we instruct Mr. Baumann to at least negotiate some sort of buyout of his unpaid or of his unused leave time, and then bring that negotiated amount in the form of a budget amendment, perhaps at the next meeting, for us to approve or deny.
I think it's only fair. I know the government does that. You can buy your leave back, or they'll pay you for your leave time. Those vacation days that he was entitled under his contract that he did not take means he was working. And so I think probably the easiest way to resolve it without punishing him for doing what was right at the time, and that was being here working, I think that'd probably be the way for Mr. Bowman to look at as one of the alternatives to consider, is that we buy back his unused leave, and then hopefully in 2020 and beyond he can operate under realm of his existing contract that we all voted, or y'all voted for. So I think that would probably be the easiest way to rectify this. And I'll just let y'all, everyone else can weigh in.
I think it's probably best to do this one in a motion, so I'll make a motion to instruct Kyle to go and negotiate a buyout provision and then bring it back as a budget amendment at the next meeting.
Okay, I got a motion.
Excuse me, and a contract, yes.
I got a motion. I got a second. Ms. Ramswell, you're up.
So I have a question. Well, number one, is that okay with Lance? I mean, is that something that you've at least thought, you said you'd look over or think over?
No, that's great. That helps me.
Okay, 'cause- and my other thought was, do we not allow a rollover of hours?
The number that Parker was talking about is in addition to my max rollover.
Okay. You are hard at work, aren't you? Gotcha.
Mr. Mitchell.
Ms. Ramswell already answered my first question was this okay with Lance, obviously. Second question is, just for information purposes, how many hours can our people bank? What's the max hours you can keep on a book?
Currently, according to our personnel policy, it's 160 hours, 4 weeks.
Okay.
Mine is a little different because of the contract.
We have a contract in place with Lance, so.
I understand.
yeah,
I understand.
Just making sure.
I was just, for information, I was just curious to know how much people could bank. Thank you.
All right, I got a motion and I got a second. So, no further discussion. Let's vote on that. Ayes have it, so moved. The action agenda is going to be full, Ray, when you send it out on Monday.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I've got my last one. I want to ask Webb, are we still on track for the first meeting in November to discuss putting the crosstown redesign issue with our continuing services contract providers?
Parker, I'll answer that one because Webb did send me the engineering contract at least a couple weeks ago, and frankly, with all the litigation, I've just not had a time to get around and review it, but it is on the schedule of things to do tomorrow. So once I turn that around to Webb, he will be able to.
Yeah, as long as it's in the hopper and we're still moving forward, that's good enough for me. Thank you, guys. That's all I got. Oh, actually, I take that back. Gulf Power, we did get a letter back from them regarding our franchise negotiations and the undergrounding agreement that we're trying to negotiate. We have been asking them for their total cost estimate for undergrounding the entire city, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt here that they still are working hard at the transition of taking over the company, and that it's not, a deliberate slowdown. So we've got a meeting set, and it will be a public meeting, I believe, on, help me out here, Kyle, I believe it was November the 19th at 1:30, and that will be a public hearing. So the mayor's going to join us, and if anybody else is interested, Steve, anybody else, please do come. It always helps to have backup, so they don't just think I'm making things up.
And it's going to be held here?
It'll be held at City Hall, I
Yeah,
believe.
we're going to be the City Hall and the old council chambers. Other than that, Mayor, I'm good.
Gary, if you want to go ahead and address this issue, because I know you.
No, I talked with Parker. It's going to be a public meeting, and see how him and Shep are still in the negotiation with Gulf Power. As it comes to fact-finding on the undergrounding portion of it, seeing how it's already a public meeting, I'm just going to attend. Our council can attend on that. And then if we see a need that we need to set up a fact-finding committee outside of the franchise agreement, we can do that here at the council level. Right now, we're just going to, we can all show up.
Thanks, good. So I want to get out of here before the storm starts, but 8 to 10 weeks ago, I made a motion to make a budget amendment for the Little League Park away from the pickleball courts, and I would like to see it at the next meeting if we can, please. I haven't seen or heard anything from it since then, but I got the votes for it, and it's a difficult conversation we're going to have about what's the best way to use, spend money, but I'd like to see that. So, thank you.
And before we get to our last two, our attorney's comments, we are under severe thunderstorm warning, so after they're done, I have no further comments. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
No comments.
We won the DOA hearing against the Sherrys, and that's all I have to say there.